සුවහසක් දැයේ දරුවන්ගේ නැන පහන් තල්වමින් ජාතික සහ අන්තර්ජාතික වශයෙන් කීර්තියට පත්ව ඇති ශ්‍රී ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය සෑම සියලු අංශයකින්ම දේශයට උගතුන් දායාද කිරීමට සුවිසල් මෙහෙයක් ඉටු කරයි. හික්කඩුවේ ශ්‍රී සුමංගල නාහිමිපාණන් සහ වැලිවිටියේ ශ්‍රී සෝරත නාහිමිපාණන්ගේ ආදි කතෘත්වයෙන් ආරම්භ වූ ශ්‍රී ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ බාහිර උපාධි සහ විස්ථාරිත ඒකකය ජාතික අවශ්‍යතාවක් ඉටු කරමින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ සිව්දික විසුරී සිටින අභ්‍යන්තර සරසවිවරම් අහිමි වූ දැයේ දූපුතුන්ට සරසවිවරම් ලබාදීමේ අවස්ථාව හිමිකොට දෙයි.
මම රැකියාවක නිරත වෙන ගමන් තමයි මගේ මේ අධ්‍යාපන කටයුතු කරගෙන ගියේ. ඒකට ලොකුම සහයෝගයක් විදියට ලැබුණ Zoom හරහා මට ලෙක්චර්ස් වලට සහභාගී වෙන්න පුළුවන් වුණා.
මම දන්න විදියට අනිත් යුනිවර්සිටිස් වලට වඩා ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයෙන් උපාධියක් කම්ප්ලීට් කරනවා නම් අඩු කාලයක් ඇතුළත ඕනම කෙනෙකුට උපාධිය සම්පූර්ණ කරන්න පුළුවන්.
මම විද්‍යා අංශයෙන් උසස් පෙළ හැදෑරුවත් මගේ වෘත්තීය ප්‍රගමනය සඳහා මට කළමනාකරණ අංශයේ උපාධියක් අවශ්‍ය කළා. ඉතින් මේ බාහිර උපාධි අංශය මගින් මේ පිරිනැමු උපාධිය මගේ වෘත්තීය ප්‍රගමනය සඳහා ඉතාමත් උපකාරී වෙනවා.
And at the same time, I cannot forget the administration of Sri Jayawardhanapura University and the external unit for always trying very hard to keep us on track and on schedule despite the challenges we faced as a nation during the past few years. Thank you very much, Japura, for everything from the bottom of my heart.
රාජ්‍ය විශ්වවිද්‍යාල පද්ධතියට ඇතුල් වෙන්න බැරි වෙන හැම ළමයිටම මේ වගේ උපාධියක් හදාarලා ලබා දෙන එක ගැන ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා.
බොහෝම ආදරෙන් මගේ නංගිලා මල්ලිලා අයියලා අක්කලා හැමෝටම ගෞරවයෙන් ආරාධනා කරනවා ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය හා සම්බන්ධ වෙලා ඔයාලගේ උපාධි සිහිනය සැබෑ කරගන්න කියලා.
ලස්සන ෆන් ලෝකයේ කොත්තුමි සැර විහිදේ විකසිත බ්‍රන්ඩ්නවා කෙරේ ෆයිනල් ෆැෂන් අපේ හීට් එක වැඩේ වටේ hot and spicy gas මැත්තේ මේ රසේ dance එක hit වෙන්නේ move එක set වෙන්නේ දිව ගැසෙවි දන්නේ රසේ කොත්තුමි happening මේ රස්තට උඩ යන්නේ hot and spicy විසේ වගේ ප්‍රීමා කොත්තුමි ෆන් තමයි.
පුතේ මගේ ඇස් ටික පියවෙන්න කලින් බැඳපන් පුතේ.
ඩිලාන් බඳින්න නැද්ද? මොකක්ද අනේ? බඳින්නේ නැද්ද බං?
මල්ලි බඳින්න නැද්ද අනේ?
බඳින්න නැද්ද?
දැන්වත් බැඳපන් පුතේ.
දැන්වත් බඳිමුද?
Rhino Roofing Products Limited විප්ලවී හඳුන්වා දීම RBS සිමෙන්ට් පැනල් කාලයක් මුදලත් ඉතිරි කපරාරු අනවශ්‍ය ශක්තිය වැඩි බර අඩු RBS සිමෙන්ට් පැනල් බඳින්න ඕනම විත්‍යක්
කියන්නේ නැතුව බැඳලා.
For over 86 years, Unilever has reached every corner of Sri Lanka, from bustling cities to quiet villages, uplifting millions of lives. With over 98% of our products made locally and one of the largest ecosystem of partners in the country, we remain committed to improving livelihoods and strengthening communities through our operations and purpose-driven brands. Our sustainability efforts focus on climate, nature, plastics, and livelihoods. At Unilever Sri Lanka, our purpose is to brighten everyday life for all.
සුව හසක් දැයේ දරුවන්ගේ නැන පහන් තල්වමින් ජාතික සහ අන්තර්ජාතික වශයෙන් කීර්තියට පත්ව ඇති ශ්‍රී ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය සෑම සියලු අංශයකින්ම දේශයට උගතුන් දායාද කිරීමට සුවිසල් මෙහෙයක් ඉටු කරයි. හික්කඩුවේ ශ්‍රී සුමංගල නාහිමිපාණන් සහ වැලිවිටියේ ශ්‍රී සෝරත නාහිමිපාණන්ගේ ආදි කතෘත්වයෙන් ආරම්භ වූ ශ්‍රී ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ බාහිර උපාධි සහ විස්ථාරිත ඒකකය ජාතික අවශ්‍යතාවක් ඉටු කරමින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ සිව්දික විසුරී සිටින අභ්‍යන්තර සරසවිවරම් අහිමි වූ දැයේ දූපුතුන්ට සරසවිවරම් ලබාදීමේ අවස්ථාව හිමිකොට දෙයි.
මම රැකියාවක නිරත වෙන ගමන් තමයි මගේ මේ අධ්‍යාපන කටයුතු කරගෙන ගියේ. ඒකට ලොකුම සහයෝගයක් විදියට ලැබුණ Zoom හරහා මට ලෙක්චර්ස් වලට සහභාගී වෙන්න පුළුවන් වුණා.
මම දන්න විදියට අනිත් යුනිවර්සිටිස් වලට වඩා ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයෙන් උපාධියක් කම්ප්ලීට් කරනවා නම් අඩු කාලයක් ඇතුළත ඕනම කෙනෙකුට උපාධිය සම්පූර්ණ කරන්න පුළුවන්.
මම විද්‍යා අංශයෙන් උසස් පෙළ හැදෑරුවත් මගේ වෘත්තීය ප්‍රගමනය සඳහා මට කළමනාකරණ අංශයේ උපාධියක් අවශ්‍ය කළා. ඉතින් මේ බාහිර උපාධි අංශය මගින් මේ පිරිනැමූ උපාධිය මගේ වෘත්තීය ප්‍රගමනය සඳහා ඉතාමත් උපකාරී වෙනවා.
And at the same time, I cannot forget the administration of Sri Jayawardhanapura University and the external unit for always trying very hard to keep us on track and on schedule despite the challenges we faced as a nation during the past few years. Thank you very much, Japura, for everything from the bottom of my heart.
රාජ්‍ය විශ්වවිද්‍යාල පද්ධතියට ඇතුල් වෙන්න බැරි වෙන හැම ළමයිටම මේ වගේ උපාධියක් හදාarලා ලබා දෙන එක ගැන ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා.
බොහෝම ආදරෙන් මගේ නංගිලා මල්ලිලා අයියලා අක්කලා හැමෝටම ගෞරවයෙන් ආරාධනා කරනවා ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය හා සම්බන්ධ වෙලා ඔයාලගේ උපාධි සිහිනය සැබෑ කරගන්න කියලා.
ලස්සන ෆන් ලෝකයේ කොත්තමි සැර විහිදේ කික්කික සිත බ්‍රන්දවා කෙරේ ෆයිවන ෆැෂන් ලපේ හීට් එක වැදේ වටේ hot and spicy guess මත්තේ මේරසේ
ඩාන්ස් එක හිට් වෙන්නේ මූව් එක සෙට් වෙන්නේ
දිව ගැසෙවි දැන්නේ රසේ කොත්තමි හැපනින් මේ රස්තට උඩ යන්නේ hot and spicy මිසේ වගේ ප්‍රීමා කොත්තමි ෆන් තමයි.
පුතේ මගේ ඇස් ටික පියවෙන්න කලින් බැඳපන් පුතේ.
ටිලාන් බඳින්න නැද්ද? මොකක්ද අනේ? බඳින්න බඳින්න නැද්ද බං?
මල්ලි පදින්න එද්දානේ
බඳින්න නැද්ද? බඳින්න නැද්ද?
දැන්වත් බැඳපන් පුතේ.
දැන්වත් බඳිමුද?
Rhino Roofing Products Limited විප්ලවී හඳුන්වාදීම RBS Cement Panel. කාලයක් මුදලත් ඉතිරි කපරාරු අනවශ්‍ය ශක්තිය වැඩි බර අඩු RBS Cement Panel. බඳින්න ඕනම බිත්තියක්.
කියන්න නැද්ද බැඳලා?
For over 86 years, Unilever has reached every corner of Sri Lanka, from bustling cities to quiet villages, uplifting millions of lives. With over 98% of our products made locally and one of the largest ecosystem of partners in the country, we remain committed to improving livelihoods and strengthening communities through our operations and purpose-driven brands. Our sustainability efforts focus on climate, nature, plastics, and livelihoods. At Unilever Sri Lanka, our purpose is to brighten everyday life for all.
What has been a truly enriching and impactful conference. Over the past few days, ICBM 2025 has brought together researchers and industry experts in different ways. As we can see, starting with the pre-conference workshops on February 17th, followed by the undergraduate research day, the main conference, the PIM annual research conference were held successfully. Each of these segments has contributed to meaningful discussions, knowledge sharing, and academic industry collaborations.
An evening, an event of this magnitude would simply not be a possibility without so many different special groups of individuals. And one such group of stakeholders, whom we shall now mention with extreme gratitude, are none other than our sponsors. And as we get gradually ready to reach this final segment of this ICBM Research Week 2025, these are the sponsors whom we recognize with heartfelt gratitude and immense appreciation. Rhino Roofing Products Limited, Unilever Sri Lanka Limited, Ceylon Biscuits Limited, Ceylon Agro Industries Limited, External Degrees and Extension Courses Unit of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, the PhD program in Management from the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, the MBA and the MSc in Management Degree Programs Unit, the Department of Commerce of the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, the Postgraduate Center for Business Studies of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, official print media partner Lake House, official electronic media partner Sirasa TV, official mobility partner PICME, academic partner Emerald Publishing, and the international partnering university, University Malaya.
Thank you very much for being an integral part of ICBM 2025.
No matter how developed the world may get and the business world advances ahead, tradition will always play a key, vital role. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, to begin this evening's proceedings, we now invite everyone to kindly rise for the University Anthem of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, followed by the Anthem of the Postgraduate Institute of Management.
Sri Lanka Pinbar Randirane Srinivasa Maha Aganagare Sri Jayawardhanapura Sarasari Sri Namaya Randhavam Lomudune Hikkaduwe Siri Sumagul Samidun Vidyodaya vidu bimadun Eliyen divi maga sarasau Sri Lanka Pinbar Randirane Srinivasa Maha Aganagare Sri Jayawardhanapura Sarasari Sri Namaya Randhavam Lomudune अयुक्तियेदि विवादशीली असत्ययेदि विचारशीली वियत् सभागत समाजशीली वियतुन विदय पोगयौ श्रीलंका पिंबर रंदिरने श्रीनिवास महाअगनगरे Jayawardhanapura Sarasari Sri Namaya Randhavam Lomudune Vidya Uppatatan Setta Vidya Uppatatan Setta Vidya Uppatatan Setta Jayawardhanapura Vidudaya Sarasari Padma Tatake Vikasita Vyuma Obai Pinbar Apa Vidya Bhumi Itu Gosa Dasa Desa Vina Morane Vajaya Data Banna Pinbar Apa Vidya Bhumi Jayawardhanapura Vidudaya Sarasari Padma Tatake Vikasita Vyuma Obai Pinbar Apa Vidya Bhumi සලසන නව්‍ය තාක්ෂණ විදුරුවන් කිරණ නොමින් පෙරාගෙන දියුණුව සලසන නව්‍ය තාක්ෂණ
විදුරුවන් කිරණ නොමින් පෙරාගෙන මානව සමගුණ විසිලෙස යොදවන
කලමනා කරන පිදුනැන වඩවන
සවිවරමින් නැනගුණ රන්දන ජය මඟ පාදන නියමුනි කේතන සවිවරමින් නැනගුණ රන්දන ජය මඟ පාදන නියමුනි කේතන සිරිලක සිරිසර මල්පල ගන්වන
විදු බිම නන්දන කරනෙමු වන්දන
ජයවර්ධනපුර විදුදය සරසවි ආත්ම තටාකේ විකසිත පියුම ඔබයි පින්බර අප විද්‍යා භූමි විදුගොස දස දෙස වීදා ගොරදේවා ජය දත බන්දා පින්බර අප විද්‍යා භූමි.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please take your seats. As we come together for this prestigious occasion, we are honored to host a gathering of visionary leaders, academics, and industry experts. To formally welcome you to this evening, it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Neelangi Nanayakara, co-chair of ICBM 2025, to do the honors of delivering the welcome speech.
Distinguished guests, esteemed panelists, and gentlemen. Good evening and a warm welcome to the Business Forum of the 21st International Conference on Business Management, ICBM 2025. As the co-chair of ICBM, it is truly an honor to welcome this distinguished audience as we come together to explore one of the most pressing and promising topics of our time: harnessing spillovers of regional growth to accelerate Sri Lanka's economic recovery. This forum serves as a dynamic platform where academia meets industry, policymakers meet practitioners, and ideas turn into meaningful conversations that shape the future. As Sri Lanka navigates an evolving economic landscape, regional integration and collaboration have never been more critical. The growth of regional economies in South Asia offers Sri Lanka with valuable opportunities in trade, investment, technology transfer, and financial markets, strengthening its global position. We are privileged to have with us an eminent group of thought leaders who will guide today's discussion. First and foremost, a special acknowledgement to our Honorable Chief Guest, His Excellency Santosh Jha, Indian High Commissioner of Sri Lanka, whose presence and keynote address will offer invaluable insights into regional economic integration and its implications for Sri Lanka. We are also privileged to be joined by our distinguished panelists, Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga, Ms. Vindhya Jayasekara, Mr. Ali Tariq, and Professor Gomika Udugamsurya, who will share their expertise and perspectives on leveraging regional growth spillovers to foster business expansion, innovation, and economic resilience. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to our Vice Chancellor of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, Senior Professor Padmalal Mannage. I'm also pleased to welcome the Director of Postgraduate Institute of Management, PIM, Dr. Asanga Ranasinghe, Professor Dushan Jayavikrama, Dean of the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, who will be moderating today's discussion. A special acknowledgement goes out to the deans of other faculties, heads of departments, senior professors, and academic staff of the University Sri Jayawardhanapura. This forum is a collaborative effort between Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce and PIM. We extend a warm welcome to the directors, board members, the academic staff of PIM, and as well as the postgraduate students and non-academic staff of both institutions, whose support has been invaluable in creating this platform today. A special welcome goes to our industry partners, whose presence today highlights the vital role of collaboration between academia and business. We are grateful to our sponsors, case study partners, and corporate representatives for their support in making this event a reality. Your commitment to bridging the gap between research and practice and contributing to meaningful discussions on regional economic growth is invaluable. As we begin the discussion today, I encourage each of you to engage actively, share your perspectives, and make the most of this invaluable opportunity to connect, collaborate, and contribute. Once again, I warmly welcome you all to ICBM 2025 Business Forum. Let this evening be an insightful, thought-provoking, and productive exchange that inspires action and drives meaningful change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nilangi Nanayakara, the co-chair of ICBM 2025, for those inspiring words in your welcome address. The Biz Forum of ICBM has been a leading platform for academics and industry collaborations, fostering new heights and innovative solutions for business and economic development. To get a glimpse about the journey it has been through, please feast your eyes on the ICBM Biz Forum video that is about to be displayed in the screen in front of you.
ICBM 2025 marks the 21st consecutive International Conference on Business Management, proudly organized by the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, in collaboration with the Postgraduate Institute of Management, University of Sri Jayawardenepura. ICBM 2025 features a series of key events including pre-conference workshops, undergraduate research day, main research conference, teaching case study book launch, and business forum. This prestigious conference serves as a platform for academics, researchers, and industry professionals to engage in insightful discussions, share knowledge, and explore emerging trends in business management. Among several sub-events of ICBM 2025, the Business Forum serves as a dedicated platform designed to bridge academia and industry. ICBM 2025 proudly brands this event as Biz Forum 2025 under the theme Harnessing Spillovers of Regional Growth to Accelerate Sri Lanka's Economic Recovery. This forum aims to foster meaningful dialogue between scholars and industry professionals, facilitating discussions on emerging business challenges and opportunities crucial for sustainable economic development. Where the industry meets academia, fostering dialogue, driving change. With the esteemed presence of His Excellency Santosh Jha, Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, delivering the anchor speech followed by a panel discussion with distinguished thought leaders, Senior Professor Sampath Amarathunga, an economist and a professor chair in Business Economics, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Ms. Vindhya Jayasekara, Chief Executive Officer Designate, Colombo Stock Exchange, Mr. Ali Tariq, Chief Executive Officer, Unilever Sri Lanka, and Professor Gomika Udugam Surya, Professor, University of Houston, and Senior Advisor to the President, sharing expert insights on harnessing regional growth for a better Sri Lanka. The discussion will be moderated by Professor Dushan Jaivikrama, the Dean of the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, and Dr. Asanga Ranasinghe, the Director of Postgraduate Institute of Management, University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Join us on the 21st of February 2025 from 5:30 p.m. onwards at King's Court, Cinnamon Lakeside, Colombo.
An exciting lineup indeed.
So, ladies and gentlemen, a highlight of this evening will be the launch of the Teaching Case Study book, a testament to the practical application of business theories in addressing real-world challenges. In order to officially launch the Teaching Case Study book, I cordially invite Senior Professor Padmalal M. Manage, Vice Chancellor of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, Professor Dushan Jaivikrama, the Dean of the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, Dr. Asanga Ranasinghe, Director of the Postgraduate Institute of Management, Dr. Neelangi Nanayakara, and Dr. Gaini Samarakon, co-chairs of ICBM 2025. Along with that, let me invite two members from each teaching case study representing the organizations we collaborated with in developing the teaching case studies and the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura along with the Postgraduate Institute of Management. The first teaching case study, Port City Colombo, catalyzing Sri Lanka's emergence as a global investment hub. Dr. Pratap Kalutantri from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura and Mr. Shalaka Vijayaratna from China Harbour Engineering Company, Port City Colombo Private Limited. Transitioning from colonial routes to global markets, a comprehensive analysis of the international trade of Sri Lanka. Dr. Samantha Ratnayaka, Senior Lecturer, Postgraduate Institute of Management. Harnessing innovation in adversity, Sri Lanka's QR fuel system as a catalyst for economic stabilization. Mr. Galavevage Kaluratna, Ministry of Energy, Mr. Samira Jayawardena, Mr. Sanjay Dayananda, Millennium IT, with Mr. Danuka Pereira from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Exploring the digital entrepreneurial ecosystem, reshaping the entrepreneurial process in Sri Lanka. Professor Vilani Sachitra from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura and Dr. Janaka Fernando from the same university. Will Sri Lanka capitalize on the perseverance of Sri Lankan exporters of coconut-based products, boosting dollar income through innovations, a case study? Dr. Naomi Dipiris, University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, with Dr. Sampath Kongahawatta from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. From data to decisions, how IFS utilizes disruptive technologies for business optimization. Associate Professor Asoka Malavyarachige, University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, and Mr. Basuru Balasuriya from IFS.
Digital transformation at Brandix, a journey towards AI adoption. Professor Sudat Manjula Amarasena from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Data, digital and decisions. Capital Alliance's path to a smarter investment bank. Dr. P.A.N.S. Anuradha, University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, and Mr. Tarindra Kulasinghe from the CAL Group. Navigating expansion challenges in a VUCA environment, a case study in PICMI, Sri Lanka. Professor K.P. Lalit Chandralal from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura and Mr. Tasneem Sali, PICMI, Sri Lanka. Building smarter, the sustainable revolution of Rhino RBS panels, Dr. Neelangi Nanayakara from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura and Mr. Indika Rajapaksha from the Rhino Group. Disruption, subsistence and cessation, the story of Orel Buy and Go. Professor Hemamali Gunatilaka, University of Sri Jayawardhanapura and Mr. Samira Abesinghe from Orel IT. Becoming and being an alternative organization, The Evolution of the English Tea Shop, Dr. Samantha Ratnayaka, Postgraduate Institute of Management, and Mr. Suranga Herath of the English Tea Shop. Ladies and gentlemen, to do the honors of officially launching the teaching case study book, we kindly invite the respective individuals to join us in front of the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, now the teaching case study book of ICBM 2025 is officially launched. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, let's take a moment to watch a brief video showcasing the first ever teaching case study book published as part of ICBM. While case study publications have been a part of past conferences as well, this marks a significant milestone as we focus on teaching case studies designed to enhance academic learning and critical thinking. We also aim to take this initiative further by pursuing indexing, ensuring greater reach and impacting the academic and business communities.
The Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce at University of Sri Jayawardenepura, a pioneering institution in management education in Sri Lanka, has always placed a strong emphasis on fostering a culture of research. Understanding that a university's role extends beyond teaching, it's also about knowledge production, reproduction, and preservation. The faculty has committed itself to advancing these ideals. In line with this vision, the International Conference on Business Management has introduced the Case Study Development Initiative. This program, launched a few years ago, aims to generate practical insights and push the boundaries of knowledge. Taking this tradition even further, ICBM 2025 proudly presents the Teaching Case Study, which will be incorporated into both undergraduate and master's level courses, enhancing the educational experience and enriching the curriculum. Under the theme is Sri Lanka Revitalizing, an exploration of prevailing economic policies and technological adoption, a collection of 12 teaching case studies is presented, categorized into 3 main areas. Now, let's take a closer look at the titles of these 12 case studies along with their respective authors. In the category of the new economic model represented by Port City Colombo, we present the case study titled Port City Colombo Catalyzing Sri Lanka's Emergence as a Global Investment Hub. In the area of government policies and strategies in Sri Lanka's tech-driven economic recovery, 4 case studies have been developed. Harnessing innovation in adversity, Sri Lanka's QR4 system as a catalyst for economic stabilization. Exploration of the digital entrepreneurial ecosystem, reshaping the entrepreneurial process in Sri Lanka. Will Sri Lanka capitalize on the perseverance of Sri Lankan exporters of coconut-based products, boosting dollar income through innovations? A case study. Transitioning from colonial roots to global markets, a comprehensive analysis of the international trade of Sri Lanka. Lastly, in the realm of disruptive technology-led business landscape, 7 exceptional case studies have been developed, including Digital Transformation at Brandix, a journey towards AI adoption. Data, Digital and Decisions, Capital Alliance's path to a smarter investment bank. From data to decisions, how IFS utilizes disruptive technologies for business optimization. Disruption, Subsistence and Cessation, the story of Orel Buy and Go. Navigating expansion challenges in VUCA environment, a case study in Pygmy Sri Lanka. Building Smarter, the sustainable revolution of Rhino RBS panels. These case studies are not just theoretical, they provide real-world insights into the challenges and opportunities faced by businesses today. They are designed to inspire, educate, and foster critical thinking among students and professionals alike. Join us as we continue to push the boundaries of management education and research. ICBM 2025 invites you to be a part of this exciting journey towards shaping the future of Sri Lanka's economic and business landscape. ICBM 2025, advancing knowledge, shaping the future.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to the most anticipated segment of ICBM Biz Forum 2025, the anchor speech and the panel discussion, where distinguished experts will explore the intersections of regional growth spillovers and Sri Lanka's economic recovery. Before that, let us introduce our esteemed moderators of the Biz Forum 2025. It is with great honor that we introduced our first moderator of the evening, Professor Dushan Jayavikrama, Dean of the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Jayawardenepura. Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce is a pioneering institution in business management education with the Sri Lankan higher education sector. It is also an integral part of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura, the country's largest state university. As a scholar specializing in marketing, Professor Jayavikrama earned his PhD from Swinburne University of Technology, Australia. His doctoral research focused on individual recovery following natural disasters, examined through the lenses of symbolic consumption and self-identity. His research interests span several key areas including social marketing, consumer vulnerability, subsistence markets, symbolic consumption, and corporate social responsibility. Professor Jayavikrama has made significant contributions to both academic research and industry practices with numerous publications in these areas. In addition to his PhD, Professor Jayavikrama holds a Bachelor of Science in Marketing Management Special and a Master of Science in Management, both from the University of Sri Jayawardenepura. Professor Jayavikrama remains deeply committed to his role in management education, always striving to inspire and support the next generation of business leaders and scholars. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Dushan Jayavikrama.
Time to introduce yet another remarkable individual, the second moderator of this evening for the panel discussion of ICBM 2025's BIZ Forum, Dr. Asanga Ranasinghe, the director of the Postgraduate Institute of Management of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura, is also the former chairman of the Sri Lanka Standards Institution. Dr. Ranasinghe is a professional with a breadth of both industry and academic experience spanning over 3 decades, with proven leadership success both in Sri Lanka and globally, with a high level of managerial competence across the value chain in the fields of corporate strategy, marketing, sales, and customer development, supply chain, manufacturing, and research and development. His work experience spans across diverse industries such as FMCG, LPG, petroleum, lubricants, automobile, agriculture, and modern retail. He also possesses close to a decade-long postgraduate teaching experience and contributes to continuous professional development of self and others in the fraternity in management, marketing, and strategy. With his experience in both private and public sector and in local and global organizations, he has acquired and has been able to display the conceptual skills and managerial competencies that are required to have a high level of strategic focus and a holistic thinking to lead effectively with high level of personal integrity in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world as it is today. Dr. Ranasinghe's first degree is in chemistry with academic and professional postgraduate qualifications in marketing and management. His doctorate is on shopper marketing, which is a fast emerging field in business. He has also been able to publish in both local and international journals, as well as contributes as a regular writer to multiple business magazines, and he is also a senior academic attached to the PIM for over a decade. Professor Dushan and Dr. Asanga, the floor is yours.
Good evening, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, and participants. It is our privilege to welcome you to the Business Forum of the International Conference on Business Management 2025. I'm Dushan, and it is my pleasure to co-moderate this session alongside my colleague, Dr. Asanga Ranasinghe. It is with great pleasure that we introduce our keynote speaker for this evening, His Excellency Santosh Jha, the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka. His Excellency has had an illustrious career in diplomacy and economic relations with extensive experience in regional collaboration. His Excellency Santosh Jha was appointed as the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka on 22nd December 2023. Prior to his appointment in Colombo, he served as the Ambassador of India to the European Union, Belgium and Luxembourg, and Uzbekistan. He has also held the position of Deputy Chief of Mission at the Indian Embassy in Washington, D.C. High Commissioner Jha previously served at the Indian High Commission in Colombo from 2007 to 2010 as a counselor handling commercial and economic matters. During this period, he played a key role in shaping India-Sri Lanka development cooperation following the end of Sri Lanka's civil conflict. High Commissioner Jha has also headed several divisions in the Ministry of External Affairs India, such as the Division for Human Resource Management and Affairs, the Division for Relations with Western Europe, the European Union and Policy Planning Division. Between 2004 to 2007, he served in Americas Division, where he was also a member of the Indian negotiation team for the historic India-US nuclear deal. He was also closely associated with the formulation of key Indian foreign policy initiatives and the establishment of number of strategic dialogue forums, most notably the globally reputed Raisina Dialogue in New Delhi. He also handled matters related to counter-terrorism and cybersecurity, and in 2016 and 17 represented India at the meeting of UN Group government experts on the development in the field of information and communications in the context of international security. High Commissioner Jha has also served in Moscow, New York, and Brussels as well. His Excellency Jha holds a master's degree in history from the University of Delhi. Tonight, we have the privilege of hearing His Excellency's first-hand experience on what lies ahead for Sri Lanka in this rapidly evolving regional and global landscape. With his vast diplomatic experience and deep understanding of economic and strategic affairs, we are certain to have a truly enriching discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming His Excellency Santosh Jha to deliver his keynote address, who will be accompanied by the two conference chairs.
Professor Sampath Amartunga, former chair of UGC, Professor Dushan Jayavikrama, Dean on Faculty Management, Dr. Sangha, Director PIM, CEO of Unilever Sri Lanka, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute pleasure and a true delight to have this opportunity to speak at the Business Forum of the 21st International Conference on Business Management, organized by the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. I have been asked to speak on the theme harnessing spillovers of regional growth to accelerate Sri Lanka's economic recovery. As an accredited diplomat to this country, it is not my place to provide advice on what Sri Lanka should or should not do. I will therefore restrict my remarks on the ongoing transformation taking place in India, and very erudite group of people here can make their own conclusions of what lessons there are for Sri Lanka, if any. and our bilateral partnership, where we are seeking to make use of synergies and opportunities afforded by India's growth and transformation for Sri Lanka's own efforts at fostering progress and prosperity. But before that, let us look briefly at the state of the world. The world is undergoing dramatic changes. Geopolitics is fractured. Strategic competition among major powers is back. Global trading system is under stress. Traditional models of economic engagement stand discredited. Economic interdependence built during globalization are becoming economic vulnerabilities. Technology is getting weaponized, as is the future economic potential that is built on it. It is clear that the global order, as we knew it, is giving way, but the new one is yet to take its place. In the interim, we will continue to live in an increasingly volatile, uncertain, and even turbulent world. In painting this picture, I'm not suggesting a gloom and a doom scenario. In fact, on the contrary, as much as the challenges are growing, there is also an opportunity for us in Asia in general, but in our South Asian region in particular. It is for us to be ready and prepared to take advantage. Friends, amidst all the dramatic changes occurring around the world, India has been undergoing an unprecedented transformation over the last decade. Today, India is the fastest growing major economy in the world. From being the 10th largest economy 10 years ago, with its GDP at 4 trillion today, India is now the 5th largest economy in the world. It will soon be 3rd largest, overtaking Germany and Japan before the end of this decade. Before elaborating further on the ongoing transformation, let me remind those of you who may not remember that we underwent an economic crisis ourselves in 1991. We had to undergo an IMF program that was not without pain, but it ushered a period of reform and opening of the Indian economy thereafter. This in turn led to sustained recovery and growth that has only strengthened with time. Perhaps this offers hope for others like Sri Lanka undergoing a similar process of recovery, reform, and rejuvenation. I must also point out that the change we are witnessing in the last decade, marked by new pace, energy, and dynamism, has not occurred as a happenstance. Persistence efforts and a strong commitment has been needed to make it happen. Policy changes, bold reforms, and a strong commitment has been needed to make it happen. Much of this was done also not without domestic opposition. It required vision, courage, and strong leadership on the part of the political leaders of the day to continue doing what is the best in the national interest. The mantra of reform, perform, and transform given by our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has been sustained relentlessly. Let me elaborate a bit on some of the things that we have done well recently. India has undertaken bold economic reforms. The goods and services tax reforms have converted India into a single market. The new labor code and the insolvency and bankruptcy code have helped reduce burden on investors. The banking system in India, which was over-leveraged, has been recapitalized. Banking has become near universal in India, as against only 20% having access to banking in 2014. Similarly, the reforms in education, space, nuclear, and other sectors, including allowing private sector participation, have opened new possibilities. Corporate tax has been brought down to globally competitive levels. Most recently, we have been able to rationalize and bring down customs tariff drastically to help India integrate with global supply chains. FTAs have been signed with EFTA, the UAE, and Australia, even as we negotiate with the EU and the UK. The impact is felt in the growing FDI numbers, which have more than doubled in the last decade. More important, it has also boosted domestic investor confidence, and many national champions have begun to make major investments in key sectors under the flagship Make in India initiative of Prime Minister Modi. India is currently seeking to emerge as a major manufacturing hub, even as it remains competitive in the services domain. Going beyond the classical reforms, Prime Minister Modi's government has undertaken what I call a continuous process of micro-reforms. 1,500 antiquated laws have been allowed to lapse or scrapped from the statute books. More than 40,000 compliances have been eased or removed. 3,800 provisions pertaining to business and economic matters have been decriminalized. Over the past decade, India has transformed the fear of business into ease of doing business. However, we are eager to do more. Last week alone, the Prime Minister of India announced the establishment of a deregulation commission to further reduce compliance burden and reduce government interference. Even as we unclog the processes that inhibit foreign investments, we have also provided positive incentives to both domestic and foreign investors through various schemes. The most notable among them is the Production-Linked Incentive Scheme, the PLI scheme. Under this scheme, the government makes payments to investors for increasing production or raising their investments. It focuses on 15 sectors of priority, backed by a budgetary allocation of $28 billion. Let me illustrate the impact it has made with some examples. In the mobile phone sector, India has become the second largest producer of mobile phones in the world. From 2 units in 2014, we have more than 200 units making these phones. We imported 80% of our mobile phones in 2014, but we are now exporting over $21 billion worth of mobile phones, including iPhones. Our production of solar panels just in the last 5 years has risen not just to meet our domestic demand, but for exports as well. In the semiconductor industry, where there is cutthroat competition at the global level, India has attracted commitments to invest over $20 billion in 5 different projects by offering 50% financial support to investors. A critical factor behind India's transformational journey has been the emphasis on infrastructure development. The national infrastructure pipeline has seen exponential rise in investments year after year. The introduction of a digital platform, such as the PM Gati Shakti, has helped speed up implementation of infrastructure projects remarkably. Approvals that required 6 months earlier are being obtained in 1 week now. Indian infrastructure which was seen as a big drag on economic growth, has now acquired the reputation of becoming an engine of economic growth. Let me provide a few examples. Today, we are building 28 kilometers of highways every day. We have expanded the length of high-speed corridors in India by 12 times, and our road network is the second largest in the world today. We are nearing 100% electrification of Indian railways and building about 15 kilometers of railway lines every day. By 2030, Indian Railways will achieve the goal of being net zero in terms of carbon footprint. Our port capacity has nearly doubled in the last 10 years. Our airports have doubled in numbers from 74 to 150 in the same period. And the number of urban metros has grown to 31, and its length has expanded by 3 times in the last 10 years. Energy growth is another area. It is important not just for maintaining high levels of economic growth, but also to ensure that our growth remains sustainable to meet the global objectives of combating climate change. Here too, our success has been quite remarkable. Our solar power has grown 30 times, and our wind capacity, power capacity, has grown 3 times in the last 10 years. The share of renewables in our overall energy mix is approaching 50%, and we have set ourselves a target of producing 68% of our energy, or about 600 gigawatt, through renewable sources by 2032. There are many such examples that I can recount to the speed and scale of change in physical infrastructure in India, which is comparable now to the best in the world. But if the story of physical infrastructure growth has been impressive, the change and impact that the digital public infrastructure, the DPI, is bringing is nothing but spectacular. It is unbelievable to see the magic unfold in India through the interconnection and interoperation of 1.4 billion digital identity numbers, over 1 billion smartphone users, and over 1 billion bank accounts. It is allowing the government to extend social safety nets at a scale and with impact that is unique for a lower middle income country like India or Sri Lanka. Just to give you a sense, 400 million people in India received direct cash benefits into their bank accounts. 450 billion US dollars of payments have been made through this system, and $35 billion have been saved by checking fraudulent identities and saving money as a result. 800 million people receive food rations every month. 500 million people are covered by free medical insurance, and over 100 million women receive cooking gas subsidies directly into their bank accounts. There are several other schemes that are rolled out using the DPI, bringing new opportunities and changing lives of the poor that would have been otherwise not feasible. This foundational DPI is also ushering a boom in the digital economy. The UPI, or the Unified Payment Interface, or the Digital Payment System, created by the government, has ensured that India accounts for over 40% of fintech transactions in the world every day. It has also led to an eruption of creativity and innovation among the youth. This is reflected best in the emergence of a thriving startup ecosystem in India. Over the last 7 to 8 years, more than 150,000 startups have been registered in India, and over 130 of them are unicorns, or startups with $1 billion valuation. This digital leapfrogging has enabled India to overcome its systemic inefficiencies and incapacities, and to deliver to its citizens, whether on social safety net and welfare, or on ease of living, and even in preparing India for the fourth industrial revolution that is beckoning us. Friends, let me now turn to the India and Sri Lanka partnership and how it seeks to play a pivotal role in supporting Sri Lanka's economic recovery, growth, and prosperity. For India, the approach to Sri Lanka is guided by our neighborhood first policy and our Sagar vision. This means that the relations must be pursued on the principles of solidarity, of sharing whatever best we can offer, and being a partner of first as well as the last resort. It also means that we adopt a non-reciprocal, generous, and outcome-based approach. Even if the benefits are weighed in favor of our neighbors, this serves the larger interest of building shared security, growth, and prosperity. This neighborhood first approach has been visible in full measure in the India-Sri Lanka relationship in recent years. We have stood up for the people of Sri Lanka whenever such a need has arisen. We have extended support during natural calamities and disasters and in times of economic distress. We have done so even when we have been equally affected or afflicted. For example, India was quick with its assistance during the tsunamis, even when much of India's southern coast was equally devastated. Similarly, during the COVID pandemic, India shared its vaccines with Sri Lanka, even while it was vaccinating its own population. We have demonstrated through our actions that we are a reliable first responder in times of need for Sri Lanka. We have shown that we are a committed partner of Sri Lanka. We have also done all of this unconditionally and with a sense of responsibility that comes from being a friendly neighbor. Friends, our relations with Sri Lanka have been growing in scale and scope. We have engaged the new government on a similar scale and ambition as we have done with the past ones. It helps when you have elected governments on both sides with a people-centric vision and committed primarily to changing the lives of the people. The central theme of our ongoing partnership, and perhaps its greatest opportunity, has to be our shared interest in advancing connectivity. One cannot argue against the merits of building greater connectivity, whether it is about air, land, maritime, digital, energy, business, or people-to-people connectivity. Connectivity is about strengthening Sri Lanka's infrastructure and creating new nodes of prosperity, as we have done in India. It is an important factor for economic growth and increased competitiveness and greater investment attractiveness. The proposed land bridge between India and Sri Lanka is possibly the biggest of our bilateral endeavors and also one with the greatest potential. The economic activity it can generate and its full implication needs to be fully understood to prioritize its implementation. Our air and maritime connectivity is also growing. The Jaffna-Chennai sector now has daily flights, and more flights to Jaffna are expected soon. Overall, we have close to 250 flights per week between India and Sri Lanka. The ferry service operated between Nagapattinam in India and Kankesanthurei in Sri Lanka has become a regular feature. We wish to also restart the ferry service, very traditional ferry service that we had many decades ago between Talaimanar and Rameshwaram, and we are working to create the necessary infrastructure for that. As regards ports, India accounts for about 70% of its transshipment handle at the Colombo port. It is about 45% of the total cargo transshipped out of India. This component is likely to increase significantly as we see growth in India's economic size, export potential, and manufacturing prowess. Apart from the West Container Terminal, which is being built through private investments from India, we are also supporting the renovation of Kankesanthure port through a grant of about $65 million US. We have also sought to turn Sri Lanka into a shipbuilding hub and ship repair hub by investing in ventures both in Colombo and Trincomalee. Given India's rapid strides in building its renewable energy capacity, which I had mentioned earlier, it is naturally a focus area for our partnership. The major emphasis is on bringing down energy costs in Sri Lanka and helping it realize its vast potential for energy exports. Lower energy costs will translate into obvious benefits to the general population. Revenue generated from exports can also bring down energy costs, first by infusion of this new revenue stream into the energy ecosystem of Sri Lanka to subsidize cost for the consumer. And in the long term, greater scale of energy production in Sri Lanka will help bring down the cost of energy production in the same way it has happened in India. It will also help turn Sri Lanka into a more attractive investment destination. Our energy projects under implementation include a grid interconnection, LNG supply for power generation, and a multi-product oil or petroleum pipeline. We are also working on a 50 plus 70 megawatt solar power plant in Sampur, which has only yesterday been approved by the Sri Lankan cabinet. Our South Asian neighbors like Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan are already much ahead on energy connectivity. Nepal is today able to earn by exporting its surplus power to India and through India to Bangladesh by building a grid interconnection with India. Bhutan has benefited from such exports for a longer time period and has seen growing investments in its hydropower potential for this reason. Not surprisingly, it has the highest per capita income in the South Asian region. Bangladesh too exports LPG to India through cross-border trading point. It also imports cheaper electric power through grid interconnection. An oil pipeline between India and Nepal and India and Bangladesh also provides opportunities to benefit from cheaper supplies from India and to ensure energy security. Sharing best practices from India and replicating our successful experiments with inclusive development and good governance is another important area of our ongoing cooperation. The key to India's success in this domain has been India's digital public infrastructure, or DPI, which I have spoken about earlier. Bringing this DPI into Sri Lanka is emerging as a major area of our ongoing cooperation. It is also a major priority of the new Sri Lankan government. We launched a digital payment system in Sri Lanka last year. Our fintech companies are now working to expand its application and propagate its use in partnership with Sri Lankan players such as Lanka Pay and PicMe. We are also working to roll out the Sri Lanka Unique Digital Identity Number project, which is needed for the full impact of DPI to be felt in Sri Lanka. We are confident that this will herald the kind of transformations that we have witnessed recently in India. transformations such as improved governance and ease of living, greater transparency, reduced corruption, fostering innovation, or securing social safety nets for the poor. Once the foundational UDI is set up, other elements of India's digital stack can follow. This can include applications such as DigiLocker, where verified documents can be digitally stored and accessed. Like in India, this will lead to many new commercial and other applications, from easier processing of loans and insurance policies to investing in stocks and mutual funds. We are also working on establishing closer connections between our startup ecosystems, including building linkages between incubators and accelerators. In India, the startup boom has turned our youth into job creators rather than being mere job seekers. And that also is an outcome that awaits Sri Lanka. Digitization can be extended to other areas as well. We have offered training and capacity building for officials for digitization of customs and other tax administrations. Like in India, they can become faceless, paperless, transparent, and more efficient. Senior civil servants from Sri Lanka have already undergone exposure and training in India on use of various e-governance platforms, including e-procurement. We are also working to help set up the Gati Shakti platform in Sri Lanka for smoother execution of infrastructure projects in Sri Lanka. We are also supporting Sri Lanka through a long-standing development cooperation. Our activities in this area include modernization of Sri Lanka's railways, construction of houses for the poor, building schools and hospitals, solar electrification of religious places, hybrid renewable energy projects in Jaffna Islands, developing first ever cold storage facilities in Sri Lanka, and supporting the agricultural, animal husbandry, and fisheries sectors. Today, we implement projects in all 25 districts in Sri Lanka. Our effort has been closely linked to Sri Lanka's priorities and seeks to strengthen the effort of the government in Sri Lanka to fulfill the growing aspirations of its people. Like in the domestic domain, our foreign policy towards Sri Lanka, too, is people-centric. The benefits to the people are the only benchmark for the success of our efforts. For this reason, India is now looking at assisting development of Sri Lanka through investments and grants, and relatively less through debt instruments. This, we believe, serves Sri Lanka better, given its recent experience with debt burdens. Recently, we have converted over 100 million US dollars into which were loans into grants. We have also extended full support to Sri Lanka's debt restructuring efforts, helping securing IMF support, and extended bilateral financial support to overcome its immediate challenges. Another key area where Sri Lanka can focus is to leverage the large markets in India and make fuller use of the India-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. Already, India is the largest trade partner of Sri Lanka. The FTA has enabled Sri Lanka to increase its exports to India disproportionately. For example, only 5% of Indian exports to Sri Lanka benefit from FTA concessions, while 2/3 of Sri Lanka's exports use these concessions. It is clear that Sri Lankan exports would be considerably lower than it is today without an FTA in place. Sri Lanka can further seek to benefit by widening its export basket and address the issue of underutilization of FTA concessions by Sri Lankan businesses. This will require investing in new products where there is demand in India and where Sri Lanka can be competitive owing to the FTA concessions. We can also seek to strengthen the FTA through an early conclusion of economic and technology cooperation agreement. This will improve trade facilitation, remove unnecessary trade barriers, and open new opportunities in key sectors of interest to Sri Lanka. However, the desire to conclude the new arrangement has to be mutual and driven by a sense that they are indeed needed for Sri Lanka's economic rejuvenation. India has also emerged as the biggest foreign investor in Sri Lanka in recent years. Going forward, Sri Lanka can easily position itself as India plus one for MNCs or multinational corporations who are investing in India as part of their global diversification efforts. This could include services as well as manufacturing. Sri Lanka can leverage its location and, of course, its strong bilateral economic and business linkages with India. These linkages are already reflected in many existing investments from India. But please remember, a friendly, welcoming, and conducive ecosystem for investments is an absolute necessity. Legal and regulatory stability and fair treatment of investors is key. Openness is equally important. India's own efforts to attract foreign investments, as I had mentioned earlier, could serve as possible guidance. I cannot end this address without talking about tourism and people-to-people contact. Our people-to-people connect is perhaps the most special aspect of our relations. The easy warmth and affection among the people can be felt visibly. I have experienced them everywhere I have been in Sri Lanka personally. Promoting tourism and cultural linkages is therefore among the most pleasant activities that we undertake. India is the largest source of tourists into Sri Lanka, but much greater potential exists. Are you aware that approximately 677 million domestic tourists are driving the tourism sector within India? Imagine if a slice of that were to travel to Sri Lanka. More Indians are also traveling abroad than ever before. India is amongst the fast growing population of millionaires, dollar millionaires, I mean. The Indian wedding industry by itself is a $130 billion industry. We are happy to work with the government to promote it wholeheartedly. Many of you would have seen my Minister of External Affairs, Dr. Jaishankar, exhort Indians to travel on vacation to Sri Lanka a few months ago. But I think one has to recognize that in order to make full use of the potential, we need increased connectivity and seamless travel possibilities between India and Sri Lanka. This will require advocacy and support by the larger society to build consensus in favor of connectivity. Friends, the growth story that is unfolding next door to Sri Lanka offers an obvious opportunity. As I mentioned earlier, India is willing to open its doors. It is ready to provide Sri Lanka access to the growth engine. We are willing to share our growth and prosperity and be a reliable and dependable partner. I'm sincerely hopeful that Sri Lanka prepares well to leverage this opportunity to its best advantage. We have a shared passion for turning our nations into developed one. Both our countries have governments in power with a clear commitment to finally deliver and translate our potential into performance. It is high time we did that, and doing it jointly and in partnership can smoothen and quicken the process. So I thank you once again, and very happy to be here, and thank you for your patient listening.
thank you very much, Your Excellency. And His Excellency has agreed to stay back with us and join the panel discussion also, so we can ask questions and get his thoughts about this whole spillover. So your perspective has laid the groundwork for a meaningful discussion ahead, Your Excellency. As we reflect on these insights, it becomes clear that regional integration is not just a concept, it is a powerful mechanism to accelerate trade, investment, and innovation, as he explained. The questions we must address now is how we as Sri Lankans capitalize on this spillover. What practical strategies can businesses, policymakers, financial institutions, and all of us adopt to navigate this evolving regional landscape? To explore these critical aspects further, we now move to our panel discussion, where our esteemed panelists will share their experience, perspectives, practical knowledge in unlocking the regional growth, the neighbors' growth His Excellency outlined just now, and how do we capitalize the spillover. But first, let us introduce our distinguished panelists, Professor Dushan.
For our panel discussion, we are privileged to be joined by an esteemed group of experts representing academia, industry, and policymakers. Their diverse expertise will provide us with a well-rounded understanding of both opportunities and challenges in leveraging the regional economic growth for Sri Lanka's development. First, we have Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga, a distinguished economist and the current Professor Chair of the Department of Business Economics, Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura. Professor Amaratunga holds a PhD in economics from the Kagoshima University, Japan, with a research expertise in development economics and economic policy. He also holds an MSc in economics of rural development from Saga University, Japan, and an MA in economics from the University of Colombo. Beyond academia, Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga has played a pivotal role in Sri Lanka's higher education sector, serving as the chairman of University Grants Commission and previously as the Vice Chancellor and the Dean of Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce of our university. Dr. Sankar.
Next, we have Vindhya Jayasekara, the CEO designate of the Colombo Stock Exchange. With over 2 decades of experience in capital markets, she will shed light on how financial integration and regional investment can strengthen Sri Lanka's economic resilience and expand opportunities for business. Vindhya is the CEO designate of Colombo Stock Exchange, bringing over 20 years of experience in investment banking and asset management. She is a CFA charter holder, a certified financial risk manager, and an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. Being a Fulbright scholar, she earned her master's in finance from University of Illinois in the US, graduating with a Medal for Academic Excellence. She completed her undergraduate studies at the University of Moderator, earning a first-class honors in civil engineering. Her global exposure includes working as a summer associate in Lehman Brothers in US, and she's also a visiting lecturer and a resource person for multiple academic institutions, where she lectures on financial markets and related subjects. Thank you very much for joining us, Vindhya, today.
Next, joining us representing the business sector, we are delighted to welcome Mr. Ali Tariq, CEO of Unilever Sri Lanka. With extensive experience leading a multinational company in the region, he will share insights on how business can harness regional growth spillovers through cross-border partnerships, supply chain integration, and business innovation. With over 20 years at Unilever, Mr. Tariq has held diverse country, regional, and global leadership roles across Far East, South Asia, Europe, and North America. Before assuming his current role, Mr. Ali was based in Unilever's global headquarters in London, where he served as the global CFO for Unilever's supply chain operations and executive vice president for large strategic transformation, including mergers and acquisitions. By profession, Mr. Tariq is a chartered accountant from the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, having trained with PwC London.
Finally, we have Professor Gomika Udugam Surya, Senior Advisor to the President and Professor at the University of Houston, joining us virtually. He will provide a policy-oriented perspective on government strategies to strengthen regional economic collaboration and drive sustainable development. Professor Gomika is a renowned scientist in medical chemistry, currently serves as a tenured professor at the University of Houston, US. He holds a PhD in bioorganic chemistry and biochemistry from Wayne State University in Michigan, and is followed postdoctoral research at the University of Texas in the Medical Center focusing on cancer and chemical biology. Professor Gomika has published over 40 research articles in leading journals, presented over 75 abstracts, and delivered over 50 invited talks worldwide. His contributions to innovation and commercialization earned him a senior membership in the US National Academy for Innovators in 2023. He's recently been appointed as the Senior Advisor to the President of Sri Lanka on Science and Technology, recognizing his dedicated contributions to advancing research and development in Sri Lanka. Welcome to the panel, Professor Gomika.
With our esteemed panelists introduced, we now begin what promises to be a thought-provoking and insightful discussion. Before we begin, I would like to invite our panelists to take their seats on stage. A special invitation goes to His Excellency Santosh Jha, the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, to join us on stage for this discussion. Professor Gomika will be joining us virtually.
Thank you very much, lady and the gentlemen. So this panel discussion is structured to ensure a balanced and engaging exchange of ideas. To begin, each panelist will have 8 minutes to share their insights on how Sri Lanka can leverage regional growth spillovers to drive economic recovery, enhance trade and investment opportunities, and strengthen cross-border collaboration. Following these opening remarks, we will move into an interactive Q&A session where we will engage with the perspectives from our audience. Questions will be curated in real time via digital platforms. Finally, each panelist will have 3 minutes for their concluding remarks, where they will reflect on the key takeaways from the discussion and share their final thoughts on actionable pathways for Sri Lanka to harness regional opportunities effectively.
With this structure in place, let's begin the conversation. Professor Amaratunga, to set the stage for our discussion, we would like to begin by exploring the economic fundamentals behind harnessing regional growth for Sri Lanka's benefit. From an economic standpoint, What is the significance of regional growth for Sri Lanka, and how should Sri Lanka capitalize on this to benefit the country?
Good evening and thank you very much, Dushan, for the question. I will set the background first, and after that I will just list down what is important for the competitiveness. And Excellency, thank you very much. Actually, you have set the background. You have just explained reforms taken place in India and results. I don't think we have to go far away from Colombo to bring down models in development to this nation, because I think the Indian model is the best after listening to Excellency. So today we talk about this competitiveness. It has become a global index today. So investors, it's now very easy. If you just look at the global index of India or Sri Lanka, you can decide whether to go to India or Sri Lanka. So like that, there are several indexes combined with this global competitive index, where investors can easily find where to go. So I will provide you a little bit of background. If you go back to 60s, we thought growth is the development. We all know growth is just a figure, GDP, but when it is come to development, that represent each and every aspect of human being, education, roads, everything. But it was a debate more than 60 years ago. But in 70s, the British, they have introduced this very popular PQLI, where literacy rate, infant mortality rate, and life expectancy were added with GDP when anyone take a decision. Then we were in a real good seat when during 70s early, when we talk about life expectancy. We had a very high life expectancy comparable with developed nations. Then literacy, again a very high index. So we were in the driving seat. But again, we have totally closed the economy in early 70s. Hope everyone can remember. But at the same time, in 60s, South Korea opened the economy, Hong Kong opened the economy, Singapore opened the economy. The main reason was the trade, the world trade increased every year by 10%. So you can just imagine, we have lost the opportunity, but at the same time, we have done a lot of industrialization within the country in early 70s. But anyway, we were a close country. We have not linked with the trade. Then in 80s, Human Development Index and so many things have came out. So with all these figures, so investors, they quickly find where to go, whether to come to Sri Lanka or India or Vietnam. Because those figures explains what is the education, whether go to another place, what is their life expectancy, whether unions play a vital role, whether people come on roads, can a company fire a person who is not coming to work, what is the labor law, so many things. Then, can you all remember, with the start of this millennium, everybody talked about a concept called knowledge economy. That is simply ICT. ICT represents so many indexes. One index I will just explain you. From the population, how many email accounts you have. Maybe you have an account, but do you reply promptly? So, to that effect, several indexes have combined together in order to develop the knowledge economy. Then education, then economy, so on. So ultimately you get a small figure. Just by looking at that figure, investor can guess where to go. Nowadays, we don't talk about literacy, life expectancy, infant mortality, everything now embodied in this one figure, a small index. If you go to the World Bank website, all countries have now listed. So why do you want to go to a place where you have powerful unions? Why do you want to go? So there are places where people work and give the fullest cooperation for companies for the development. So everything now in those indexes and embodied in the main index. This is the background. Dushan, I will give you the direct answer. This is also based on Excellency's speech. Thank you very much for eye-opening speech, not for us, even for the Sri Lanka. If you don't reform these 6 sectors, no one can achieve development. Proved by the Indian economy today. Number 1, trade and investment liberalization, tariff and non-tariff barrier reduction, streamline customs procedures and reduce tariff to enhance trade facilitation. Just 3 weeks ago, the queues for the Sri Lanka Colombo port to get containers, it's a news all over. Do you think in an environment like this, people come and invest here, come and work in the export industry? So we need reforms. We need laws to settle down all these. Then bilateral, multilateral trade agreements. Strengthen trade partnerships. There is a relationship, the agreement between Singapore, which everybody doesn't want. From doctors to engineers to academia, everybody, they say, no, we don't want. So how can a country have a good figure in the knowledge economy index or in the global competitiveness index? You don't get the figure to attract people to come and invest in the country. So we have to have partnerships with India, China, and Asia, for an example. Number 2, infrastructure and logistics development. Yes. Then manufacturing and export diversification. We need laws and reforms. Labor market and skill development. And number 5 is regulatory institutional reforms. The last one is financial sector reforms. So these are the 6 main areas coming under the global competitiveness index. If you don't reform these sectors and liberalize and bring down the openness, no one will come. But within 6 months, if you open up and develop all regulations and liberalize, automatically investors will come and reside in Colombo. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Amaratunga, for those valuable insights. It's clear that regional growth presents big opportunities for Sri Lanka, but the key question is how do we turn these opportunities into real financial gains? So that brings us to the next panelist, Vindhya Jayasekara, as a CEO of Colombo Stock Exchange. You have a front row seat in how investment flows into Sri Lanka. From your perspective, how can our capital markets tap into regional growth to attract more foreign investment and strengthen financial ties, especially within South Asia? And do you see deeper regional financial cooperation opening up with new funding opportunities and boosting investor confidence? Little technical question, but you're the best to answer.
Thank you very much for the question. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So let me first start by saying I just started at the Colombo Stock Exchange. Sometimes I will revert to being a fund manager, so I will wear 2 different hats from time to time. I will confuse myself, so please excuse me if I do that. But I'll put a little bit of numbers in front of you. Right now, Sri Lanka's stock market, capital markets overall is quite small. If you take out, if you keep out the government securities market, which is an 18 trillion market, our stock market is about 6 trillion rupees. That's about a $20 billion market. Our listed debt market is about 275 billion rupees, which is not even $1 billion. So in terms of the size of the market, we're not that large. And if you look at liquidity also, we are still not where we want to be. If you look at the stock market, the share market turnover, the share turnover velocity, we are about 8%. So what does that mean if I put this in context of regional numbers? For example, markets like Pakistan, Bangladesh, together with their stock exchanges, Dhaka Stock Exchange, Chittagong together, you're looking at something like $120 billion. So we are $20 billion, they are about $120 billion together. In terms of liquidity, their share turnover velocity is something like 30%. And India is not even comparable. Indian market, I have the statistics here, they are in trillions. So about market capitalization somewhere around $4.8 trillion with about 45% in terms of turnover velocity. So this is where we are, and this is what we need to improve. This is what we are. Why? Because stock markets are important to an economy. We can't simply be an economy that is dependent on banks. His Excellency, you were talking about how India was underpenetrated in terms of banks. I don't think, have that problem, because if we look at, we have a 21 trillion banking sector. We don't have the same, if you look at even our unit trust industry is barely penetrated at 500 billion. So we are, in that sense, alternate avenues of finance are very small. And what happens is when you don't have that alternate set of finances or alternate avenues of finance, you don't have that opportunity where you have a good private equity space, and then you don't have the private equity guys having a way to exit because you don't have a good developed capital market. So then what happens is you have to rely on the banks, and then you can't negotiate. So your cost of funds go up. This becomes a never-ending problem. So it becomes very inefficient for the economy to grow. So what's the good news? The good news is the fact that, I mean, we are in these markets, we are in this region that is one of the fastest growing regions. I mean, India is one of the fastest growing economies. Even Bangladesh, despite its problems, is still slated to be the 24th largest economy by 2036. So we are in that region where we can really capture the potential of all of these markets, the way that they have developed. We can learn from them. We can actually look at their learnings and put that into our ecosystem. Plus, we can leverage on the population there. We are a 20 million population. We are talking about 250 million population in Pakistan, maybe 150 million population in Bangladesh, again, trillions in India. So this is something that we can really harness on. And we've seen that also happening. It's not that we haven't seen that happening. Actually, if you look at our stock market, slowly India has been growing in terms of importance. I think in terms of buy turnover, we were looking at the numbers, and India has grown to about the 6th largest in terms of investor base. So this is where we have to really work with the region to get the region to come and invest. And things are, so some things that we are starting to do, we have, for example, the Colombo Stock Exchange has a diverse set of products that are now being offered. I mean, the rules are ready and in place. We have the green bond rules in place, the REITs rules are in place, there is a multi-currency exchange. So the rules are in place. Now it is up to, essentially, for the companies to look at taking use of it, making use of it, as well as Port City is another way that we can really look at harnessing that potential. Because with Port City, Sri Lanka can really look at positioning ourselves as a regional financial center, more neutral, similar to Singapore, Dubai, where we can really, with eased capital controls, tax incentives, streamlining of listing requirements, we can really look at offering a value proposition to raise funds. So these are different things that we can do to leverage on the experience and to really leverage on the regional capacity.
Thank you, Ms. Jayasekara, for your insights, highlighting the role of capital markets in harnessing the regional spillovers. We would like to now hear the role of large multinational corporations operating in the country and in the region, and the role they play in this discussion. So I'd like to turn to Mr. Ali Tariq. As the CEO of a leading multinational company in Sri Lanka, how do you perceive scale and impact of Unilever's operations in the country? And given the expanding regional economic opportunities, where do you see the most significant investment potential that contribute to the economic development of the country?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, good afternoon, Excellency and fellow panelists. It's an absolute honor and a privilege to be here and to share my thoughts. Look, I'll start off first by talking about a business that continues to fuel, that has been and continues to fuel economic and social activity in Sri Lanka. And not least because it benefits hugely from the region today. My boss sits in India, so I report into India, and therefore I'm a business that has continued to benefit in the areas of technology, supply chain, talent, marketing capability, and that's the reason why we are what we are today. So regional cooperation is not something new for us. Look, we're about almost an 85 billion rupee business in this country. We have been in business for the last 87 years, so we started from scratch, and today we're proud to be serving about 100% of Sri Lanka's households with essential consumer goods, whether it's in the laundry place or the household care place or beauty place or the personal care area, and some of the biggest brands that you've heard of, from Sunsilk to Dove to Sunlight to Vim, are all supplied by Unilever Sri Lanka today, and this is something that we're very proud of. Our region continues to sign off on big investments in the market and the potential of the market. You know, we invest about 1.5 billion rupees every year on capital expenditure, on factories. Yesterday we inaugurated a 3.8 billion foods factory. So, you know, that investment continues to fly, and that belief in the potential of Sri Lanka continues to come in. We have 900 people. We employ 5,000 people in our ecosystem. We pay almost 15 billion of taxes every year. So we continue to contribute to the exchequer as well. Now, that is not going to change. And that is not going to change for other multinationals that operate in Sri Lanka either. The question is, what is that next big exponential opportunity for the Sri Lankan economy? Serving 22 million consumers is not going to offer that. We're too small a market, and as you rightly mentioned, it's a tenth of just a Pakistan, or and certainly an even smaller fraction of India. The exponential opportunity, I feel, for multinationals or FMCG multinationals is to make Sri Lanka a large export manufacturing hub, or a big shared services hub. That's where you tap into the global billions rather than the local 22 million. And just to give you an idea, a multinational like a Unilever, just alone in India, spends billions of dollars on manufacturing their products. Globally, the number is even bigger. And I think Excellency referred to that point in his speech from a tourism perspective, and I'm trying to draw parallels with that. If we could get a small fraction of the global manufacturing spend or manufacturing base, that will hugely move the needle for Sri Lanka's export opportunity. We've done a little bit of research. Our labor costs are one of the lowest in the region. And when I talk about region, I'm not talking about South Asia alone. I'm also talking about Southeast Asia, Australasia. Our utility costs are some of the lowest. So multinationals like ours, we have global products with a global chassis, with a global look and feel, global size, same product. Why can't those products be produced in Sri Lanka? Why do they have to be produced in Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, and Indonesia? So there is a huge opportunity to market Sri Lanka as an export hub. Now, what is the challenge today? What am I struggling with? And I'm using myself as an example to bring the point to life. Why can't I go to my bosses in India or even in London and offer this proposition? The challenge is stability and consistency of economic policies. So 2 years ago, I was trying to explain to them why my business in this country is disrupted because the country has not been politically or economically stable. And today I say, yeah, can you set up a $50 million shiny manufacturing facility for Dove shampoo in the same country? Because it's not just about cost. It's also about resilience. It's also about continuity of supply. So, and we have some great data points over the last 18 months of stability. And if that stability can continue, both from an economic perspective and a political perspective, I think business houses over here will have the case to go to bigger business houses and offer them the products out of Sri Lanka. So that for me is the big opportunity, the next big opportunity. And it's not just manufacturing, even shared services. For example, global organizations or multinational, they all have large shared services centers in Katowice, in Manila, in Bangalore, in other countries. We've got amazing talent. We've got amazing connectivity and IT capability. Why can't we leverage that? And some of the organizations are already doing, likes of HSBC, likes of the London Stock Exchange are already operating their back office operations out of Colombo. So again, there is a case to get a small sort of share of the pie, and that small share of the pie will hugely move the needle for Sri Lanka.
Thank you very much, Ali, for those very unique in terms of the perspective that you gave. While large corporations like Unilever, and I happen to work there for over 2 decades, play a critical role in driving investment and trade in countries. And it's also essential to look at how Sri Lanka's local industries, especially the SMEs, which contribute to over 50% of the economy, the agriculture-based businesses can scale up and compete in the regional value chains. So now we're going to talk to Professor Gobika with the time difference. Thank you very much for joining us. He's joining us through Zoom. Professor, very good morning to you. We can't hear you still. Let's see whether we could get your voice. Can you speak up, Professor?
Yeah, good evening to you all. Can you hear me?
We can hear you very clear.
Hi, thank you.
So, Professor Gomika, the question that I have, especially in relation to your new role as the advisor to the President, from a policy standpoint, and you heard the other panelists also expressing about the policy and the consistency of policy and so on, and His Excellency's speech, how India has changed policies, and how can government empower these sectors to take advantage of the regional growth? How can incentives for innovation, sustainability, and capacity building help our position as a country and the businesses to benefit from this regional growth, I think very well articulated by His Excellency.
All right, good evening to everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me for this great forum, and I really enjoy listening. First of all, I'm not an economist, but I have been involved in the policy development, especially on the science and technology and research and development, how R&D can be utilized to drive the economy in Sri Lanka. So that is the main part actually I'm going to talk to you today. I hope you can see my slides.
We can see you. If you can put the slides on
yes.
presentation mode.
Can you see it now?
All good now, all good.
All right. So basically what I'm going to talk to you today is how the research and development can prepare the background and develop value-added products and services to drive the economy in Sri Lanka. So this is basically the background preparation part I'm going to present in the context of this main forum. So in the R&D area, there are 2 major activities going on right now, which is the finalizing the government policy and also the act development, which takes a little bit of time. But in the meantime, we have launched with the support from His Excellency President, the National Initiative for Research and Development Commercialization effort to rapidly bring this research and development to the economy. So let me first briefly go through the policy development part. So what is R&D? So it is a very long process. So someone can have an idea and you need to define it and do research, test it, and then design it and come to prototypes, and then we need to brand it, fund it, and then market it and bring it to the commercialization. So the R&D involve all of this. So why we need it? Of course, for economic development, and then in Sri Lanka we have a lot of natural resources, and they already have some value-added added components. So the production cost may be less, And also we have a great human potential. We really need to harness that. And if you look at the Sri Lanka, there are a lot of research going on. There are a lot of research centers, but there are some the loopholes here. First, actually, this research is scattered. So what we are going to do is we actually going to prioritize research for the national economy. And then after doing the research, the other shortcoming is it has not been linked to the economy. So we are going to develop plans to harness the value of this research and bring these value-added products and services and link it to the economy. And also one other really big factor is we are putting very small amount for the R&D from the GDP. So that's another place we are going to address. So basically the vision of this whole plan is to use the innovation and invention and bring it to do the R&D and bring it to the economic prosperity, social well-being, and environmental sustainability. If you look at the principles, there are so many stakeholders here. The government is there, the private sector, international partners, the general public, they all are there, like any other developed countries. But we had a big problem, which is we didn't have the interconnectivity between these stakeholders. So that is one of the biggest principles we are going to establish. So this is kind of the flow chart, like how the national investments will be used in the R&D and bring the novel findings, prototypes, and then protect them, intellectual property, patents. And then we come to the final products and services and into the commercialization. So the government will involve heavily in the initial part, and then the private sector, the investors, entrepreneurs, and the businesses and the industrialists can come to the second part. So as I mentioned, we first make the interconnection, and then we actually plan to centralize the administration of this whole R&D field. And we are planning to develop a centralized institute and then high-powered several committees in national level. So what we are going to do here is first actually prioritize the research needed for Sri Lanka, which can be linked to the economy. And then we fund them and get research done through the universities, research institutes, technical colleges, all those places, and then develop these high-tech incubator facilities and bring the private sector into the equation to complete the whole story. So this is kind of the model that most of the developed countries used. So in the government side, so we develop the centralized institutes and then high-powered committees, and they are going to the ground level and bring the information from the ground level from all different sectors and make these decisions of prioritizing research needed for the economy, and then we get it done through the same mechanisms. So let me jump in to talk about this special national initiative for R&D commercialization, which is we call NIRDC, established recently. So one of the biggest plans is to increase the funding amounts for the R&D, and His Excellency President has already devoted funding from the last budget for R&D, and we are going to increase the funding for these research institutes. And also we have short-term, long-term, and mid-term goals. The short term, what we are going to do is there are a lot of research has been done, but not being connected to the economy. So in very short term, we are trying to bring it to the production. And then mid-term and long-term, we are going to do fund the basic research and also invest for the future. I'll bring your attention to the first part, which is very important. So this is where we develop this NIRD mechanism. Again, His Excellency President has already allocated 1 billion Sri Lankan rupees for this process. What we do here is very simply fill in the gaps. So our main goal here is to complete or use the complete or near complete research projects, and then fill the gaps and bring it to the economic link it to the economy. So there are three ways, three approaches here. For the near completed research, we are going to provide the gap filling funding. And then for the completed research, we are going to match those to the investors as we really see there are a lot of investors willing to come now. And then there may be situation where the investors are there, the funding is, the research is there, but they have different other problems like lands, legal or environmental, whatever. So we are going to resolve those. If you look at all these three mechanisms, these are very clearly set to rapidly and urgently bring this R&D sector into the economic development. We have developed single entry window to submit these research applications on this website. And there are 6 sectors we have identified. First in the technology, where the engineering, AI, IT, commercialization, the communication, all those. And then the food and sustenance, which is agriculture, fisheries, livestock areas, food security. And then the environment, land, air, water, mineral resources, the forest resources in that area. And then the well-being and intellectual health, education, basic science area. And then also the social development, art and culture, history, heritage, and there are so many components there too. And then we have open areas for the whatever didn't cover here. So we are trying to bring all these aspects into the economic development. So what are the facilitations you get? We provide the direct funding for gap filling, such as for the R&D, land acquisitions, resettlements, support patent applying and acquisitions, construction and repair cost, staff recruitment, consultation, training and all, and then the operation and management support, disaster risk reductions, legal environment certifications and other approvals. So what are the concessions for investors? There are very important concessions we are providing. First of all, no commissions will be asked and no political and bureaucratic interferences will be there. They've all been cleared, and then we are developing fast-track procedures for investors to come and invest, a very investor-friendly environment, tax concessions, and also absorb some costs for certifications that are required for international levels, facilitating location through industrial zones, prioritize access to key facilities and authorities, help increasing visibility. The government can do a lot of things on there. Then recognize the innovators and investors, and also recognize R&D efforts to inspire next generation. So I try to cover a lot of stuff based on the R&D and then how it can be used to economic growth. So like I said, we are actually developing this policy. The policy has been developed, but we need to make it government and then develop acts. And also this intermediate national initiative for R&D commercialization arm to empower the already or near completed R&D and get those value-added products and services into the economic mechanism. So this is all what I'm going to cover very quickly. I'm sorry I went very fast and I was trying to cover as much as possible. So I'm happy to answer questions after this. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dugamasuriya, for your thought-provoking ideas in terms of the possible policy changes, mainly coming from the research and development point of view. And as you concluded, we hope that the other policies that are necessary to make this happen will come in handy as the time passes. Thank you all other panelists for sharing their insightful thoughts, provoking perspectives. We now would like to open this forum for Q&A session, where we invite our audience to engage in directly with our esteemed panelists.
Right, so this is your moment. You will see a QR code. You can scan the QR code displayed on screen and from your mobile device, and you'll be able to submit your questions directly to us, and we will then review them and direct them to the panel. So while that happens, one last concluding comment from His Excellency, if you can make one concluding comment on the comments made by the panel while we wait for the audience to scan the QR code.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I have spoken long enough this evening, much longer than the others. But, you know, I have been watching India for many years, and when we talk about India and the lessons emanating from it, one has to remember that there were long periods when India had very slow growth rate. In fact, it was called the Hindu rate of growth. I remember reading about it in my college. But for me, in a sense that when I spoke in my address, and this is not just here but around the world wherever I have gone, there are 2-3 things that really distinguishes the last 10 years of India's, the change that we are witnessing. One that I emphasized is the micro reforms. A lot of people, right from the World Bank downwards, economists, would talk about classical reforms, structural reforms. Those are important ones. I mean, you can't escape them. But they're also very difficult to implement politically at times, and you face a lot of political backlash, and probably even we have not been able to implement reforms that would ideally be prescribed for India by the classical reform advocates. But the micro reforms are kind of invisible. They happen slowly. They change lives of business people, of the consumers, of the citizens, and make a much bigger impact without the political cost. And that is much more in your control. And that is, I think, an area which Prime Minister Modi has very successfully, been able to implement in India. The second thing that I see which is different is this huge, massive emphasis on infrastructure. Upfront infrastructure is a high-risk investment. It looks very difficult because returns on that are not that imminent and guaranteed. There are other activities that can give you better returns. But if you're looking at a long term, not only you are getting a lot of injection of economic activity immediately, but the multiplier effect that it brings is much greater, and the speed of growth really becomes exponential as you go around. And there would be a range of areas in which we have seen, as you enhance the scale and the benefits of it begin to roll out over a period of time, it is much faster than it was initially. I'll give you an example. In 2014, from a very low base of solar power and renewables in general in India, the Prime Minister put up the target of 175 gigawatt of renewable energy in India to be achieved by 2022. And I remember meeting the Secretary of the Renewable Energy Ministry in India, and he said, this is impossible. You can't achieve, this is daydreaming. You know, by 2022, we actually exceeded that. Today, we are more than 200 gigawatt. We are targeting 600 gigawatt, as I said in this. So there is a certain point where the growth becomes much faster because you have achieved a certain scale, and the infrastructure itself is such a thing that creates more sort of effect on the outcomes. And the third thing is digitization, because digitization in India is remarkable, as I mentioned, not just for the impact that we see, the economic activity that I outlined, the social safety net impact that happened, but I think the most important thing that I feel it has created, it has raised the efficiency of the government and systems beyond what our normal resource base would afford, whether it is human resource base, which is very thin in Sri Lanka, in India. The bureaucracy is very small. I mean, you might think it is very large. In India also there's an impression, but when you compare it with the developed economies, their bureaucracies are much larger than ours on an average basis. And then also in terms of financial resources, we have a resource crunch. But look at what happened. Because of digitization, India was able to provide 2.2 billion vaccines to its citizens at the same rate and pace as America and Europe did. And their populations are much smaller, and the number of vaccines they provided were much smaller. And it was entirely done. If we did not have this digitization base that we have now, this would not have been possible simply. And there could be other examples of, how, for example, we have eliminated hunger in India completely by being able to give 850 million people rations every month based on very targeted system of the Aadhaar, or the unique digital identity number. So it has raised the efficiency of the government. It has raised the ability to deliver to the citizens. It has raised citizens' confidence in governance. There is less skepticism about government, and which is in an era today when you talk to the Western countries, whether in the US or in Europe, they would tell you democracy is in a crisis. But in my country, the same government has been re-elected 3 times. So we say democracy delivers when other parts of the world are saying the democracy is receding. So I think the fact that, I would basically say that these are the 3 things that stand out to me in terms of what really works, has worked in India. Apart from the fact that we've done a few very classical type of reforms, there are the stock market that was spoken about. I don't know much about stock markets myself, but I know that India's stock market has grown exponentially in the last 30 years, particularly after the economic reforms, but most importantly in the last 5 to 7 years. In fact, many people thought that it was overpriced, and it's now leveling out a bit in the last few months. But the fact is that those are things that will happen over a period of time. What is the distinguishing feature in my view are these 3 things: the infrastructure, digitization, and the process reforms, the micro reforms.
Thank you, His Excellency. Some of the questions, we keep receiving a lot of questions from the audience. Thank you for your engaging discussion. However, with the in the best interest of the time, we might not be able to take all your questions, while our back office is working on combining some questions. And His Excellency already answered some of the questions audience has raised for you. I'd like to direct this question to Ms. Jayasekara. The question is why stock market has not, or Colombo Stock Exchange has not opened for the crowdfunding yet in terms of market development.
So I think, okay, I have not, I am still yet 2 months young at the Colombo Stock Exchange, so it's very difficult for me to answer that question offhand. I know that Colombo Stock Exchange did evaluate crowdfunding. I know that discussions went through, but there were some technical issues that were there. I am not privy to it because I haven't looked at it yet. We can look at it to see what were the deterrents for crowdfunding that were there at that time, and we can revisit it again. There are some projects that are going on now at the CSC along with the SCC. So there are a few projects that are going along. So these can be another project that can be revisited again. So.
Right, thank you.
So, Mr. Alutharik, I think you spoke about this whole cost of production being comparable, competitive in Sri Lanka, but there is a at least a perception among us that Sri Lanka is a costly destination to manufacture, and we're small compared to India, and you come from Pakistan. We don't have the scale to compete in the world market. If you look at our agriculture sector, or even if you look at our manufacturing sector, you find that we are a little bit lagging. How do you think we should address this issue?
Yeah. So first of all, and let's take Unilever as an example because it just brings the point to life. First of all, our manufacturing setup in Sri Lanka is world class. Just to give you an idea, we're the largest multinational company in the country, one of the largest, and 98% of our volume is locally produced at 4 factories. And as I mentioned in my earlier question, yesterday we inaugurated a 4th factory. So that way, we're very strong. Our conversion cost, our cost of production is one of the lowest in the region. Because of labor costs, because of course, technology in the manufacturing machines, and of course, because of utility costs. The challenge, however, is that we are heavily import reliant for our feedstock. Yeah, whether it's palm oil, for example, or plastics, or soda ash. And all of that is subject to very, very high import duties. So that makes manufacturing or the final end product extremely expensive. Now, there are some government schemes which allow you to import raw material for export purposes duty-free. Yes, that's true. But for example, for the product portfolio that I export out, I can't avail that because there are some challenges with the systems in segregating raw material that's imported for export purposes and raw material that's imported for domestic use. So this is my earlier point as well. Ease of doing business is absolutely essential to grab a share of the global orders, whether it's a manufacturing or shared services or whatever. But to answer your question, Dr. Asanga, the underlying cost of producing in this country is competitive. It's the raw material that hurts and bringing it in.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have received more than 50 questions by now. We are really sorry that we can't accommodate all the questions. One of the questions the audience has directed to Professor Amaratunga. In your initial remarks, you mentioned about 6 types of areas, aspects that we need to pay attention to. The question is about what is the role of educational reforms in addressing the 6 areas you mentioned.
Yes. When it is come to education, we all know education is the culture here. 20 years ago, the government has given only 2% university entrance. But today, this has risen to 24%. Fairly okay. Even though it's a bigger amount compared to 20 years, India, they have a higher amount. South Korea, it's 100%. Japan, more than 90%. So, non-state and state sector, we have 2 sectors. Non-state also take nearly 45,000 students per annum, whereas the public universities also take at the moment 45,000. The non-state, the biggest source of income is the government scholarship provided for students. Dushan, it's only nearly 1 million. The biggest issue is 1 million is not enough for an engineering degree. When it is come to computer science, 1 million is not enough. So in the public university system, we produce less than 5% from the total, engineers. Very little percentage goes to software engineers. 25% comes under humanities and social sciences. So we need reforms. We need reforms. When it is come to growing sectors in the economy, the high demand for data science, database engineers, software engineers, so on. These are the buzzwords in the higher education today. But at the same time, we can't forget, in US, what they say, we don't need data science, science is enough. There is an argument like that. So here, we don't have a regulatory body for non-state. That is the biggest issue. And we need a friendly type of controlling agency. We should not go behind non-state and ask how much you are going to charge, what are the facilities you are going to offer. That is not the case for a regulator at the moment. We have to provide lot of opportunities for the youth. So Excellency said, Prime Minister Modi attracted all youth in the nation. I have asked how you all have controlled so-called union and everything. So he basically said, the government policy have created opportunities for youth. When you go to the passport office, you can see how many youngsters are there. They want to go abroad. And they want to come to a university, but no opportunities. But non-state is there. But when you compare 20 years ago, today is a heaven. That's true, because 24% get university entrance. Another 45,000 goes to the non-state. That's true. But when we compare other countries, those who are having very high growth rates, so we need to have a real a reform and maybe a new act. We have to study what are the red tapes in higher education, and we have to ease off all red tapes in higher education, whether it is non-state or state sector. We have to open opportunities for youth. I think that is one of the most important areas, Dushan, when it is come to human capital, especially this professional category. This is the most important area. If we can produce, demanding areas, we will be able to attract a huge amount of money. Just for your information, I will let you know. Now, Excellency mentioned, just by exporting telephones, India earned 21 billion. We can't compare India and Sri Lanka. If I tell you the figure, the total export earnings of this country, 16.7 billion. From apparels, we all know everywhere you can see apparel industry, it's 5 billion. And remittances coming from Middle East, not from England, not from US, not from Australia or New Zealand or Japan. Simply, we all know why we get money from Kuwait. Why? Because openly speaking, they all housemates. They send what they earn. the professionals, those who are leaving, won't send money to the country. They go with their families and they invest Sri Lankan money in other part of the world. Right. So 16.7 billion, 6.5 billion remittances, and 5 billion apparel. Do you know how much we earn from tourism? 3.1 billion. So we need to expand everything. Those are the areas actually even education must concentrate. Thank you.
So there are so many questions, Professor Dushan. I think I'm going to combine one last question with your permission to Professor Gomika. This is about, I think Mr. Ali Tariq also spoke about it. There are many questions about consistency of our policies, ease of doing business, investment in innovation, and you being the advisor to His Excellency the President. What is Sri Lanka going to see in the future as opposed to what we have seen in the past? And past is past. Now in the future with the spillover, and we listen to some exciting events that have unfolded in India. So what is Sri Lanka's response in terms of policy and consistency and so on, Professor Gomika?
Absolutely. So I'm very glad to answer that question, because that is the major thing we need, consistency. So what we lack in the past was we didn't have a proper policy. Actually, there were some policies, but the implementation was another hurdle. It was not, many of those policies were not implemented properly. The same thing continued over and over again. So we have proposed so many different policies. That's why actually I was only focused on the R&D area, the education, to everything, health, to so many other places. But in terms of this forum is economic based. So in terms of the policies related to the economy, they are going to be consistent. And as I mentioned, and as some of the problems described, like the raw materials and other things, and then the investors didn't have a good environment. There are long procedures, the bureaucratic interferences, and so many problems. So we are actually in almost all of our policies, we are trying to bring the consistency and develop acts based on that. And I'm totally agree with what Professor Amaratunga also mentioned, that the education is one of the biggest pillars for, actually not only for the economy, it's for everything, right? So there are a lot of reforms are coming in and identifying, and especially we are trying to give a lot of emphasis for vocational training, and not only just going through single directed education plans. We are going to expand them and bring a lot of different areas that can produce really capable and trained individuals they can drive so many different areas into the economy. So in forward looking, absolutely, the digitalization, IT, AI, engineering, there are so many areas have been identified, and even in the R&D side, as I mentioned, there are a lot of new areas have been identified in forward looking. They all actually targeting how we can achieve three things. One is economic prosperity, the other is the human and social development, and the environmental sustainability. So again and again, there are a lot of policies being developed, and a lot of acts are coming, reforms are coming, really drastic reforms are coming in. They all going to be consistent and going to be supportive for the economic growth, and also they are all forward-looking. I hope I gave kind of a general idea, but given the time constraint, I think I'll stop here. And If there are other questions, people can reach me and we can answer.
Thank you, Professor. You certainly did answer the question broadly. In the best interest of the time, we are not able to take any more questions, although questions still keep coming. We would like to invite you to keep your questions to discuss with the panelists, maybe during the network session. Before we conclude the discussion, we would love to hear some final thoughts from each of our panelists. If you can sum up in 2 minutes, what should be the takeaway from today's discussion, from your point? And our topic today was harnessing spillovers of regional growth to accelerate Sri Lanka's economic recovery. I'd like to start with Professor Amaratunga, followed by other panelists.
My idea is, with the present structure, we have come to the peak. In order to achieve another peak in another different wave, we need a 100% reform. So this is what actually the Excellency explained, 100% how India reformed all their sectors. Not like in India, to bring down reforms in a country like this is very easy. Because now everybody knows reforms are needed. If you take public transport, I don't think anyone can argue this system is more than enough. We don't need any development. It's a must. Without a reform, there is no tomorrow. So even in education, so we need this, especially to identify the most demanding areas. The biggest thing is whether we cater for the demand or supply handles the demand. If supply handles the demand, that's wrong. That is why a lot of youth going abroad to study what they want. So these are simple examples. Even logistics, if you go to customs, right? So we may behave there and handle our baggages and packages and bring them out, but you just imagine a foreigner investor who invests here billions of dollars, how can they work in such a environment? So those reforms 100% needed, 100% needed. That is my view. Thank you.
His Excellency Santosh Jha, if you can please bring your conclusion remarks.
Be very brief. I think you need to improve your investment conditions here, not just about the cost that was mentioned earlier, which is competitive, but about consistency of policy, regulatory. Getting investments is also the solution to the immediate crisis of that you have once the repayments of debt would begin. The second thing that I would suggest is there's a big market, a big economy next door. The natural pathway to progress is to plug into that. Every country which is located next to a big economy does that. That is the more natural thing to do. And if we can get over your hesitations in that regard, it would be something that will be very useful. I think also getting over, you know, some of the convoluted thinkings of the 20th century It's very important to prepare for the new world. Somebody mentioned engineering as a discipline, technology. We are entering a geotechnological age, so you need to prepare for that. I think people will find in Industry 4, actually the skill sets are required are very different. We produce the largest number of engineers in the world, and yet we are working on trying to prepare for the skills of the 21st century, and I would think that is an important element looking into the future. So thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency. Ms. Vindhya Jayasekara.
Yeah. So just to, I think, conclude, I would say we should look at regional partnerships, and this is something from capital markets wise, this is something that we have looked at, where we have MOUs with the regional markets. So these are things that we can look at for other industries as well. And one more point in terms of the discussions that were there today, and Senior Professor mentioned educational reforms, we have to move towards the understanding of differentiating between saving and investing. And that has to come from the point of primary school itself. So we have to put that into the curriculum. So I think that is a big educational reform that needs to be done if we really want to take Sri Lanka to the next level.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ali Tariq, just to conclude the session.
Right. So what I'd like to say, and I'd like to give it a slightly positive spin, grass is always greener on the other side, but we shouldn't underestimate our strengths. I think from a trade route perspective, we are very well located. From a cost of doing business, we're very competitive. From a talent availability perspective, we're better than a lot of the emerging markets. What our business houses in Sri Lanka need to do is they need to think bigger. They need to think beyond the 22 million people. There is a world out there, and with the strengths that we've got, notwithstanding the opportunities such as consistency of policy, etc., but the strengths that we've got out there is a huge opportunity. And two opportunities that I would like to point out. One is, of course, as Excellency mentioned, you've got a neighbor who's on a roll, and plugging into that opportunity is one. The second one, particularly for the manufacturing industry, is a lot of companies are moving towards a China plus one strategy. Yeah, what COVID has taught us is that you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Everybody is looking for diversity. Everybody is looking for other geographies to diverse their manufacturing base. Let's take advantage of that. As we move into an era of stability and growth, there isn't a better time to market ourselves for that next big opportunity.
Right, thank you. If Professor Udugamasuri is still staying connected with us, could you please put your thoughts across?
Yeah, so I mean, I totally agree with all the panelists, and yes, it all comes to the policies and how to implement all those, right? So that is very well understood by the current government, and that's why actually there are like about 30 odd policies have been presented, and they are being now converting to the government policies, again fine-tuning them, and then develop acts based on that. So as I mentioned, there are so many drastic changes are coming in many different sectors, and again, most of them are also connected to the economic development, and they are actually being prepared forward-looking way. Like I said, the education to R&D to so many other policies were developed by looking at the future markets and future conditions, and then it's very important not only having these policies written in documents, but how implementation as well. So I think the Sri Lanka need to really prepare to implement these policies and keep the consistency, and that actually brings the credibility to Sri Lanka, and then that drives investors to come in and invest and develop Sri Lanka. So we are working on all of those different situations, and I can guarantee that actually there are a lot of reforms and ecosystem policies are coming in. So I invite everyone to actively participate and take this forward, because without the public participation, nothing can be implemented. So I hope we have a very good platforms being set up, so we can look to the future in a very positive and bright way. Thank you so much for inviting me, and also thank you so much all the panelists and His Excellency as well. So thank you everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. All good things have to come to an end, Professor Dushan. So thank you for all the panelists for sharing your valuable thoughts. It's amazing the amount of discussion we had. This has been a valuable discussion, bringing out different perspectives on how Sri Lanka can position itself within the region and make the most of the emerging opportunities. So it's clear that regional growth isn't something that happens in isolation. It requires businesses, policymakers, financial institutions, and all of us to work together. And today's conversation, we hope, has given us plenty to think about and work towards taking our country forward.
With that, we wrap up this panel discussion. Once again, huge thank to the panelists and the audience for your engaging discussion. It has been a pleasure to moderate this session with my colleague, Dr. Asanga Ranasinghe from PIM. We would now like to hand over the session back to the MCs this evening to take the proceedings to the next.
Can we have a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for that very insightful discussion? We would like to also request our moderators and the panelists to kindly remain on stage for a few more moments.
Ladies and gentlemen, with the conclusion of this panel discussion, we now take a moment to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished panelists. Each has contributed profoundly to the depth and breadth of today's discussions. We would now like to present them with tokens of appreciation as a symbol of our gratitude. I would like to invite on stage Senior Professor Padmalal Manage, Vice Chancellor of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Professor Dushan Jayavikrama, Dean of the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, Dr. Asanga Ranasinghe, Director of Postgraduate Institute of Management, accompanied by Dr. Nilangi Nayanakara and Dr. Gayani Samarakon, co-chairs of ICBM 2025, to present the tokens of appreciation.
It's our honor and pleasure to, while we have the two moderators joining us in front of the stage as well, to invite Senior Professor Padmalal Manage, Vice Chancellor of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura, to hand over a special token of appreciation to His Excellency Mr. Santosh Jha, High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka. We wish to invite Professor Dushan Jayavikrama to hand over a token of appreciation to our panelist of this evening, Senior Professor Sampath. Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga, the Professor Chair of Business Economics at the University, at Economist. May I invite our moderator of this evening, Dr. Asanga Ranasinghe, Director of PIM, to hand over the next token of appreciation to Ms. Vindhya Jayasekara, CEO Designate of the Colombo Stock Exchange. And may we kindly have our co-chairs of ICBM 2025, Dr. Nilangi Nayanakara and Dr. Gayani Samarakon, handing over the token of appreciation to Mr. Ali Tariq, Chairman and CEO of Unilever Sri Lanka, yet another panelist of this evening.
Thank you very much. There's one more special token of appreciation to Mr. Tharindu Pereira, lecturer of the Department of Business Administration, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, for designing BIS Forum logo and initial designing of ICBM 2025. I invite the co-chairs of ICBM 2025 to present the token of appreciation to Mr. Tharindu Pereira. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have concluded the Business Forum of 21st International Conference of the Business Management 2025. I cordially invite Ms. Amali Hena Dirage, Co-Secretary ICBM 2025, to do the honors of delivering the vote of thanks, acknowledging the collective efforts that made this forum a resounding success. Over to you, ma'am.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Senior Professor Patmalal Manage, Vice Chancellor, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Professor Dushan Jaivikrama, Dean, Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Dr. Asanga Ranasinghe, Director, Postgraduate Institute of Management, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Senior professors, all the lecturers from the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, and then Postgraduate Institute of Management, and then from all the other universities, and our distinguished industry guests. Thank you very much for your presence today. A special appreciation to our esteemed anchor speaker and the panelists, His Excellency Mr. Santosh Jha, Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga, Ms. Vindhya Jayasekara, Mr. Alitarik, Professor Gomika Udugamasuriya. Thank you so much for your insights at the panel discussion. We are deeply grateful to our sponsors and partners for their invaluable support in making this event a success. Not only that, our appreciation also goes to the administrative staff, the staff from the Information Technology Resource Center, and then non-academic staff and all our students from the university. A heartfelt thank you goes to our co-chairs, Dr. Nilangi Nanayakara, Dr. Gaini Samarakon, and the ICBM 2025 team for their effort for the past few months in making this event a success. ICBM 2025 this year featured the National Pitching Research Competition, where we proudly produced one grand finalist competed at the grand finale of the Global Pitching Research Competition. Not only that, 3 pre-conference workshops, an undergraduate research day where 240 undergraduates presented their research, a main conference with 156 research papers were presented with more than 300 local and international authors from diverse academic and industry backgrounds. And then tonight we have this final event of ICBM 2025 with 250 academics and industry guests in our audience, strengthening the bond between the academia and the industry. Additionally, today we launched teaching case study book featuring 12 teaching case studies, and all these efforts shows the commitment of the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce to extend the university's role beyond teaching to knowledge creation, dissemination, and preservation. As we conclude 21st ICBM on 21st February 2025, to everyone who supported in making this event a success, thank you very much. Wishing you all a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amali Henadirike, for your vote of thanks and the attitude of gratitude shown towards everyone present this evening and who has contributed towards the success of this event. As we officially conclude the Biz Forum of ICBM 2025, we thank each and every one of you for your valuable participation this evening and for contributing to the richness of today's dialogues with your eager listening and enthralling questions. These insights have not only enriched our understanding, but has also inspired us to forge ahead with resilience and innovation.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we are officially concluding the 21st International Conference on Business Management, ICBM 2025. Before we conclude, we would like to take a moment to express our sincere appreciation to the organizing committee of ICBM 2025. Their dedication, tireless efforts, and meticulous planning have made this conference truly enriching and a seamless experience. From coordinating research presentations to ensuring every detail of this event runs smoothly, their commitment has been the driving force behind ICBM 2025 success. Let's give them a well-deserved round of applause for their outstanding contributions.
Part of being the MCs of an evening, of an event of this magnitude and nature, is also the chance to deliver the good news, and we have two of them indeed, as the organizers have informed us. Number one, as you may have already noticed, the bar will be open towards the left-hand corner of the audience, and secondly, the dinner will also be served at the room adjoining shortly. With that, ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect on the insights and inspiration of today's forum, let us all rise for the national anthem.
Sri Lanka Mata, Upper Sri Lanka, Namo, 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 Namo Mata. Sundara Siri Barini, Surandi Ati Sobhamana Lanka. Ranya Dhanaya Nekamal Palaturu Piri Jaya Bhumiya Ranya. Apahata Sapa Siri Seta Sadhana, Jeevanaye Mata. Pilidanu Mena Apabhakti Puja, Namo Namo Mata. Upper Sri Lanka, Namo Namo, Namo Namo Mata. Obave Apavidya, Obamaya Apasatya, Obave Apashanti, Apahada Kulabhanti, Oba Apa Aloke, Apade Anuprani, Oba Apa Jeevanave, Apa Muktiya Obave, Nava Jeevana Demini, Nitina Apa Kubudu Karan Mata. Gnana Vidya Vadavamina Ragina Yanu Mena Jaya Mumikara. Ekhamavaka Gedanu Kalabalina, Yamu Yamu Vinopama. Prema Vada Samadeta Durala, Namo Namo Mata. Upper Sri Lanka, Namo Namo, Namo Namo Mata.
close this chapter, we open the door for continued conversations and connections.
Thank you and good night.
PM is in wheelchair. Where?